channel and a happy new year. So for this month's tutorial I am going to be doing a Italian Greyhound, and I've chosen this subject because it's mainly going to be grey tones, so we're going to be focusing on our values to make it look realistic. There will be a few other colours sort of glazed over the fur, but mainly focusing on those values of the grey fur. All the materials you need are listed in the description below. I'm drawing this on Fabriano Artistico Hot Press watercolour paper as usual. It's about 27 centimetres across and 30 centimetres down, if you're wanting to follow the same size as me. And yeah, let's get into this. As usual, we're going to be starting with the eyes, and we're going to get both eyes done in this tutorial. Now, this image was taken with studio lighting, so there's not much reflection going on within these eyes, so it may not take us as long. We're going to stay fairly true to the reference photo, and yeah, we'll get started. So, as usual, I have my dark sepia, and I'm going to start by outlining the outside of the eye so that we get the shape and the size correct. I'm just making sure that I'm constantly looking back at this reference photo, and we're going to get the shape of this eye mapped in quite lightly so that we know that the shape is correct for when we start adding in all the details. And this is at the top, but there's a bit of fur coming off of here, so just sort of mapping that there's a bit of fur there. And that's coming down, so that's like the top of the eyelid, and this is obviously the actual eye itself. And that's going. So I hope you've all had a lovely Christmas and New Year. Let me know if you got any art supplies for Christmas. I did. I got quite a few new supplies to try out, which I'm excited to try when I get the chance. Right, so we've kind of mapped in the general shape. I'm then going to map in this eye. Now we have got a very bright light in the eye, bright highlight in the eye. So we're just going to sort of outline around that. And then this section is quite dark, but there is like a purplish blue tone. So I'm sort of going to bring it halfway down this spherical area and then just sort of push the dark sepia outwards. And then we've got like a grey highlight coming in here. So it comes down like that. So you just, all you're doing whenever you draw eyes, just look at the shapes that you can see. And you're just drawing the shapes. So that's all we're doing, we're just drawing the shapes. So I had meant to release a tutorial on how I draw horse eyes. I've recently drawn a horse, and I was going to do the eye as a tutorial, and I finished drawing the horse eye, went to look at the footage and realised I hadn't even pressed record. So I've double checked that we are recording this one, so that you can follow along. Okay, so we've got everything kind of mapped in very lightly now with this one eye, so I'm just going to start coming in now with a harder pressure. I'm really going to start darkening up these outlines. Now, if you wanted to go straight in with your black, you can. It is black. I'm just using dark sepia because that's what I like doing with my eyes. And then this is going to come in around here. And then we know this is fur, so I'm just going to lightly blend it. And I'm making sure I'm following that fur direction as it's curving around this eye. Like so. Okay, we're then going to take our dark indigo. So I've got the dark indigo, and I'm just going to go brush over the top of that dark sepia. And then where I still have this dark highlight in the eye, but I can see those other colours, I'm just going to bring that dark indigo into here. It's quite a reddish tone as well in here, like purplish red. And I'm going to bring the dark indigo over this dark sepia. I think there is that reddish tone, so I think we're going to use the red violet there. So I have the red violet. And again, going over that dark indigo. And along here. And I'm just going to bring it. So you notice we've not used a base layer for this bit, and that is fine. Because it's going to get quite dark, we can really darken it up and push this colour into the tooth of the paper. Okay, you can start to see we're getting this eye now. But we are going to use a base layer now for the pigment in the eye. So it's got a nice brown eye. So I've got my ivory as a base layer. And you want to be careful when you're bringing it up towards where you've got that blue. Try not to mix those colours together. And I'm just going to apply this base layer along here. Sort of along the edge where I can see this brown. And it comes underneath here as well. So this is just going to help flatten that tooth, remove some of the grain of the paper, and then allow us to work on top with our details. And I've left this, there's like a highlight here that I've left. That's going to be grey, so I've not added the ivory as a base layer here. And I'm just going to add it along the top of his eye here. Okay. Then taking the burnt ochre, these are all the Polychromos pencils. And I'm just going to start building up these orange tones in his eye, going over the ivory base layer. So I do use just the Polychromos for the eyes because they're quite a translucent pencil. It means that all the layers that you add are going to show up really nicely through each other. Just gives you that nice glassy look to the eyes. You get some really nice eyes. So I'm just applying this burnt ochre over all of that ivory area. Sort of circular ovalish movements to build that up. I'm then going to take the terracotta. It's very vibrant orange in places, and I'm going to use fairly medium pressure just to build up that orange around this edge here. And it's just along the edge of this eye. And again here. Really build up that colour within this eye. I really should get some of these pencils in pencil extenders. So you can see the difference between the burnt ochre to the terracotta. It's really given that eye some really vibrant colours. I've then got the burnt sienna. And this is where we're going to start adding some of the details. So I'm just looking at these eyes. Now these eyes are really detailed and you could go into so much detail with them, but we're just going to try and simplify them ever so slightly. So I'm just taking the burnt sienna along the edge and I'm dragging it back into that terracotta. I want to blend these colours. Now when you've got images that are really highly detailed and you could really go to town with the detail, on a size like this, there's I don't really want to be adding in all that detail. It doesn't make sense for a smaller drawing. For your larger drawings, go to town. But you can just kind of pick and choose. So I'm just drawing in some of these like lines that we can see, adding the detail in the eye. But I'm not going to make sure that they're all perfectly placed. I'm not going to copy it sort of line for line. Okay. And then I'm just going to take the terracotta again and I'm just going to bring that back over that burnt sienna. Just to help blend along that. Okay, I've then got the walnut, no that's not walnut brown, I want the walnut brown. Walnut brown. along the top of this eye here where it's nice and dark. So kind of dragging the shadow down. Create this nice dark eye. I'll then take the burnt sienna and go over the top of that walnut brown and drag it down. Now we can start darkening up this middle section of the eye in a minute. I'm just going to bring that burnt sienna a bit down here like so. Okay, so then I've got the red violet again. And I'm just going to start bringing this red violet detail from the dark section over these brown ochre tones. And it's really just going to help add some detail and shape to this eye. So, and that kind of comes up into this dark area as well. So all these colours are just reflecting in this eye. Now there's not as much detail colour-wise because he's not like sat in a field, and you've got this big highlight because he is in the studio. So the lighting and the atmosphere that the dog's taken in just changes the eyes ever so slightly. Just going to add some details there. Okay, and then take the dark indigo. I'm just going to, I'm not taking the dark indigo into these orange tones. We don't want green eyes, so I'm keeping it over that red violet and just in this dark section here. Sort of medium pressure, and then being really careful when I get to this edge here that I don't mix those colours too much, and then coming down here. Okay, and then we need the black. Okay, got the black, and then I'm just going to take the black over that dark indigo. Hard pressure because this is black, and then where I haven't got that blended, I'm just going to take that black down like so. Now we need to do this little highlight in this eye in a minute. Let's get that done. So just got this. So we've got two sort of highlighted areas and we'll tackle them separately. I'm just going to take this black around the eye as well. Really darkening up any areas that I need to be black. Okay, so we've starting to get this eye now. We need, I'm going to take warm grey 2, and I'm going to take the dark indigo, warm grey 2. Right, so dark indigo first, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very lightly, I'm not pressing hard at all, very lightly add in the darker shapes that I can see. There's also a bit of an orange tone there, so I'm just going to, I'm not mixing the blue and the orange, very lightly here. And then this blue comes down and around there. So you're kind of just mapping in the shapes, very gently. And then I've got the warm grey 2, and I'm just going to press fairly hard. Now when you get to this area, sort of press hard where the orange is, but don't mix it into the blue tone. And then do the blue sort of around it with your hard pressure, and then you can blend that black into here. So this is just going to give that like muted colours within this highlight look. Just going to take that burnt sienna along the bottom of this eye again. You see how we've kind of got that highlight there, but you can see the colours, they're very muted. Burnt ochre, just want a bit more there. Might actually just do another layer of the dark indigo and then go back over with a warm grey 2. And it just creates that muted colour behind this little highlight. And I'm just sort of blending, if I need to blend, using this Warm Grey 2. Warm Grey 2 is a brilliant pencil to help you with the blending. Okay. Then taking the Coal Grey one for this little highlight, and I'm just I'm going to rub it over that dark black and just sort of drag it into the middle of this eye, and then very lightly add that little blue shadow that we can see in there, and then take a white, and you just want to go over the top. Be very careful when you're dragging the colours and the pigment around with the white, and then I'm just going to go back to the black, and I'm just going to really darken. So if you need to go back and forth, go back and forth. Just keep going back and forth till you are happy with the tones that you've created within the eye. It may take a bit of doing, but that is fine. For me, it's not about being as fast as you can and pumping out artwork as quickly as possible. I mean, it'd be great if you could do a piece a day, say, but for me, I'd rather take my time and just get it how I want the piece to look. Okay. Right, so we have the eye, and now we need to get some of the fur in around this eye to make it in place. So I'm taking my Warm Grey 1 as a base layer, and I'm just going to apply this as a base layer around the eye. So I'm going up to those guidelines that we've got marked out. Now, my guidelines are marked out very lightly, so I'm not too worried about not erasing at the moment. I'm going to go darker with these colours, but for now it's a nice pressure on the graphite that I'm not worried about the graphite lines being there. So I'm just I want a little area mapped out so that I know that this is the eye, and the eye is in place with a bit of fur. Okay, so that's the Warm Grey 1 as your base layer. Now he's got a pink tone around his eye, so I'm going to use the burnt sienna, but I'm going to do it very lightly over the base layer with the burnt sienna, sort of pushing it outwards and bringing that colour onto this eyelid. And then in this corner here as well. And then very lightly, I'm not pressing hard at all, along this bottom of this eyelid here. And then I'm going to take the cinnamon, and I'm going to use a bit of a harder pressure, and I'm just going to run that across the top of that burnt sienna. That's going to help push that pigment into the paper, but give us that nice pinkish tone that we want. Along this eyelid. Just going to take that black, and I'm just going to really darken this eye. Remember, if you need to go back and darken areas, do. Okay, and then the cinnamon. I'm just going to take that burnt sienna again, and I'm just going to bring it along where we've got that dark sepia, just to really help darken this edge up, and blending it back into where we've got that cinnamon area. I'm then going to take what Warm Grey, so we're going into the fur now, and with us going into the fur, this is where we need to start looking at tonal values. Now I'm going to use the Warm Grey 2 as we come out from this eye, and make sure you follow that fur direction. And I'm just going to start bringing in some of this Warm Grey 2 Now a lot of this fur will make more sense when we have the darker colours around it added in. And we'll use one of the darker colours for tonal values as well. So I'm just kind of using this along the edge because this fur around the eye is very light. So I'm kind of just using the warm grey too along the edge, creating some definition where we're going to start seeing some shadows. And along here as well. So it's just sort of using the warm grey too to sort of darken these edges. And I kind of just want that warm grey there as well. And then along this eyebrow, or eyelid, I should say. I'm just going to take the warm grey one as well, because there is a bit of a bluish tone under this eye. So I'm just going to medium pressure over the top of that warm grey base, and that'll give us a nice neutral colour for these highlighted areas. Bit of pigment coming off the pencil there. Okay, I think I'm just going to add in this little shadow just so it makes sense for the piece. So this is warm grey 1. So I'm just going to come in here with the base layer. I think this will make more sense if we've got this bit in. I'm going to add coal grey 1 over the top of that. I want that blue sheen coming through. Okay, now there is a bit of a pinkish tone. So we're going to take, I'm just wondering if it's like more of like a brownish, pinkish. I think we're going to make it more neutral. So I'm going to take the Nougat. This is going to give me that brownish tone, but I don't want it to be pinkish brown. So I'm going to just use Nougat. I use Nougat quite a lot in my portraits. I quite like the colour it is. And I'm just bringing this along where this highlight is starting. Following that fur direction. Remember the fur is changing because we're onto this eye. And then we need the warm grey 5. So I've got the warm grey 5. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start following this fur direction, sort of flicking the fur as we're following this fur direction. Light pressure, we can darken this later. And I'm just flicking this fur. It's very short fur, so you want to use short pencil strokes. And then I'm bringing that pencil down to that brown, overlapping slightly. And we're going to get this nice dark highlight. Now this will need to be darkened, but I'm not going to go in too dark just yet. I do kind of work back and forth. I do one area, come back, darken another. That's what works for me. Now you can go straight in and have this really dark, but I need it nice and light. Okay, and then I'm going to just take the warm grey 3, and the warm grey 3 is going to act as a transition between the dark highlights and the shadows. The dark shadows and the highlights. Wow, words are hard. Just bring it along here as well. And then I'm kind of just going to use circular motions along the bottom where we've got this pink highlight. Just to create that definition that that's further forward. Bit of fur direction there. Okay, I'm going to get the dark sepia. I just want to darken this fur line up again. So nice sharp pencil, and I'm just darkening where, sort of going to blend over that cinnamon a bit with the dark sepia. This bit of fur is quite a bit darker. This will come down. And then I've got the burnt sienna. Just want this to be nice and pinkish reddish area here. Okay, like so. I'm pretty happy now with how this eye is looking, so we can move on to the other eye. I feel like, sorry, this is the black. All I'm doing is I'm just going over areas as I flick back and forth with my reference photo, I can see need darkening. Oh, okay, we've got a teal line here that I've not included. So I'm going to take my slice tool and I'm just going to gently scrape away some of the pigment to create that teal line. Okay, like so. Okay, so we have one eye. Let's do the next eye. I'll just move him across. So again, I'm going to take the dark sepia, and just like with this eye, we're just going to do the outline, work our way through the eye. So take the dark sepia, and I'm just mapping in the dark shadows. So any area that's like black, that's the areas that I'm going to sort of map in with the dark sepia. And I'm following the shape of the eye first, because that's the shape that I want to capture first. So let me just work out what's going on with this line art. Okay, so that's coming down here. And up. That's the dark outline here. And that's the top of the eye. And then this is shadow. And then that's all dark. Okay, so that's the shape of the eye. Very light. You can see it's just light pressure so that I can grasp the shape of this eye. And then that's going to be dark. Okay, I've missed one of the highlights here, so I'm just going to take my putty eraser and I'm just going to lift away this these lines in the middle of the eye. And then very lightly, I'm just very lightly mapping in where I can see the dark pupil. Again, it's got that purplish tone, purple reddish tone. So I'm not going to fill in the whole area, but this is kind of like the dark area here. Like so. So I'm just going to darken. Once you're happy with the shape of the eye that you've got, that's when you can go in with your harder pressure and darken it all up. So I'm just double checking. What I'm doing at this point is I'm looking at the shape of the eye that I've got. Am I happy with it compared to the shape of the eye to the reference photo? And I am. So I'm just going to go in now and harder pressure and darken this. Now on this particular picture that we're drawing, the nose is actually out of focus, but I think for our drawing we're going to try and give it some detail to make it look like it's in focus, and then we'll try and keep the ears a little bit out of focus. I do want that nose to have a little bit more detail than it does. And this is the great thing, like when you're doing something like this for yourself, or if a client asks, knowing how to just add that little bit of extra detail to create something to be in focus is going to be really helpful for you all. Okay, going back with the dark indigo. Again, be careful where you have those brown tones. You don't want the dark indigo over that. So I'm just going over that dark indigo, and then it kind of, this blue comes around the top of this eye here. Now this eye is quite a bit darker than the other eye. And I'm going to bring this down about here. And then we've got the red violet for the reddish tones that we can see. Very lightly, I'm just mapping in those red tones. That's coming down here. And then over the top of this blue to about there, because that's quite a bluish tone. So you can just see, you can see the grain, you can see we haven't really removed that grain. That is fine. So going in with the Ivory as a base layer. So we've got the large highlight there, coming down here, and then it sort of stops about down here. Now I'm not worried if this isn't exact. Like I say, this is a personal piece and I just want to teach you some of the techniques that I use. We don't want it to be exact. We want it to look like the dog, and we want it to look like an Italian Greyhound, but it doesn't have to be exact. Okay, so I've left that little highlighted area and we've got a highlight here, but the rest has the base tone. And then we're going to go over that base layer with the burnt ochre to give it that orange tone. Again, careful where you've got the blue. Just along here. Your reference photo is exactly that. It's a reference. So you're using it to help you, but you don't have to copy it exactly. Then we've got the terracotta. And I hope that's sort of what I'm going to be teaching you, especially with this tutorial. Like, we don't want the eyes to be as detailed, but we still have detail. Still has an eye. Bring that turquoise along the edge here as well. Like, the fur doesn't have to be exact because dog's fur moves all the time. The reference photo shows you the direction of the fur, it shows you the lighting, your tonal values, and that's what's going to help you create this realistic looking dog. Okay, I've then got the burnt sienna, and I'm bringing that down from the top here and along the edge of this eye. It's quite dark here. Just going to take the, I've got the sanguine. I'm just going to bring this sanguine over the top. Yeah, that's better. Okay, that was the sanguine just over the top there, and then back over with the burnt sienna. And then the burnt sienna coming out of there. And along there. Okay. And then I'm going to bring this red violet along here a bit more. Right. I'm just going to take the warm grey too. So we do have like a greyish, greenish tone here. So what I'm going to do, just come back over with the burnt ochre. That's the burnt ochre. And then I'm going to take the warm grey too, and I'm just going to run that along that edge. And that's going to give you that sort of greenish, greyish orangey tone there. And then we have the burnt sienna sort of just along this edge as well. And I'm using little lines to give that effect that's going on at the bottom of this eye. Like so. Okay, now we can darken up this section. So I'm just going to start with the dark indigo, sorry, in the middle of the eye. And I'm using circular motions. It's really dark in this section. It's hardish pressure. And then I'm just going to bring dark indigo across the top, medium pressure along here. Still got that blue tone. Then I'm going to take the warm grey too and just run it along that edge there. And then it's back to the red violet. Let's sort of bring the red violet around here. And all I'm doing is I'm just mapping in some of the shapes that I can see, some of the details and the colours, just to give the resemblance of this eye. And then this is a sharp edge, so we're going to make sure we've got a nice sharp pencil and a sharp edge there. Bring that over the top of the dark indigo. And up here. I'm just going to get the dark indigo again, and I'm just going to medium pressure over the top of this red violet. That's a nice sharp edge. And just over the top there. So you've got that blue tone over that purple tone, and everything's just showing through nicely now. We then have this highlight again going on, so I'm just going to sort of curves down here. So that just needs to be dark blue here. for now. So like we did last time, I'm just going to take this blue and I'm very, very lightly following the shapes. We've got that orangey yellow tone in here, so I'm just going to, the burnt ochre, and it's kind of an ivory, so I've got the burnt ochre down first, and then just going to go over the top with the ivory. Fairly hard pressure. And then bring this dark indigo across here. And then we use the warm grey 2 as a blender, so you're going to press hard, push that pigment into the paper, and just be careful when you're going over that burnt ochre area not to blend it with the blues. And then if you feel that you want to darken it up a bit more, so I just want a little bit more blue showing, I'm just going to go over that warm grey and then back over with the warm grey 2. And then I've got the burnt ochre again. I'm just going to show that that's coming in here. And then the warm grey 2. So I've sort of created it as 2 different sections. It's part of the eye. And then going to take the burnt sienna here, and I'm just going to add in the details I can see. So I'm sort of curving these lines up, adding a bit of detail in this corner of the eye. And then I'm just going to go over with a burnt ochre to give that nice orange tone to the colour of his eyes. My black, where it's really dark in this eye, which is in the centre, just sort of so what I'm doing with the black is I'm using really hard pressure in the centre, and then as I get to the edges I'm just lightening it off so that it all blends nicely together, but I still get that nice dark centre of this pupil. And then I'm going to get the coal grey 1, and I'm just going to do it in this highlight, and then take your white again just to help blend there. And then if you just need to soften any edges, just soften off those edges. So I'm just using a bit of the blue here just to give those edges again. And I'm just going to take the dark sepia, sorry. We've got like a dark line here, so just going to bring this dark line down, sort of curve it around here, give that curve to that highlight. Like so. Okay, am I happy with this eye? We just need to darken the edges again. So the black, any areas that I need to darken where it's just dark sepia, just going in now with this black. I'm just going to blend that down into that eye, give it shadow. And curving around here. Again, we've got some highlights in this eye that I'm just going to add with the slice tool. The big white highlights, if you want to apply with the white Polychromos first, you can. I just do it this way because it's not as bright a highlight then, it's a bit more muted for me, which I prefer. I don't want it to be as in your face as they are, like so. Okay, let's get some fur around this eye. So warm grey 1 is a base layer again. And I'm going to do a similar amount. Around this eye. Now your base layers don't have to follow the fur direction. I kind of get them to follow it just because it makes it easier for me later on, but your base layers doesn't matter because you're adding layers on top. And it's those layers on top that are going to determine like the fur direction. Okay. So that was the warm grey 1. And this time I'm just going to take the coal grey 1 across the whole base. Rather than doing it later on, it's going to give us that nice neutral grey tone, the blue tones showing through. Okay, then we're going to do, as before, I'm going to take the burnt sienna for these pinkish tones I can see. Light pressure. Just going to bring those pink tones. And these, by doing this, you're really putting these eyes into place. Sort of setting up that this is a dog eye. And it is in fur. Okay, along here. And then the cinnamon. Oh, don't chuck your pencils. The cinnamon over the top. And then I've got the dark sepia because we've got this dark eyelid again. I'm just kind of flicking that fur in the direction. So flicking the pencil strokes in the direction of that fur. And then just going to get that dark sepia, burnt sienna over the dark sepia. Just darkening this corner of his eye here. So just any areas that I just need to darken, I'm very lightly using the dark sepia to do it, sort of blending these two areas together. Okay, and I'm going to take the Nougat again, just along this edge. And then the Warm Grey 5 over the top of that Nougat. And then it's back to the Warm Grey 2. And this is just going to follow that fur direction. Okay, Warm Grey 5 in this area where it's darker. So I'm just flicking those pencil strokes to create that fur. And then the Warm Grey 2 in the lighter areas. Warm Grey 3. I'm using the Warm Grey 3 in these lighter areas to add some detail. So I'm just going to add like little lines where you can see just like the fur's going this way. And it just adds a little bit of extra detail. This area is quite dark, so we're going to take the Warm Grey 5 for that detail here. Just along this edge. And then if I need to, I feel like I just want to darken here again. So this is the Warm Grey 5, just over the top there. And again. So you can see how just adding those furs. Oh, why are we a bit yellow? Sorry. I wonder. Oh gosh, I don't know why that went yellow. I'm really sorry, guys. I never noticed. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there with the lighting. You can see now that we're starting to really get these eyes in place. So I think we'll just add a bit more fur around the eyes for more context. So I'm going to bring it back over to this eye and Warm Grey 1 as the base layer. Now the head is smaller on this guy, so we don't want to do too much detail this time round. But we want enough to make it look like there is fur here. Just gonna do that bit corner here. I'm just trying to get sort of a base layer down where the eye will look nice enough to leave it. If we can leave the eyes, so the first part being the eyes. So we want a nice amount of fur around these eyes. Yeah, I think that might be quite a nice point. So this is the Warm Grey 1 as a base layer. I'm then going to go over the top with Cold Grey 1. think the lighting was because the sun has come out and I didn't notice and change it. So I'm really sorry that it kind of went yellow. Hope that hasn't been too off-putting. I'm just going over that warm grey one with the cold grey one. Okay, this is where we'll really start seeing the colours. So, warm grey 5, and I'm just going to come over here because this does need to be darker. So we're just going to start darkening up this shadowed area of fur, which is on his eyebrow. Bring that down. And you can see I'm flicking up to create that nice transition between the darks and the lights. I'm just going to take that Nougat again in this corner. And then the warm grey 3 over that Nougat, and the warm grey 5 just to help again with the blending and the transitions here. And then I'm just going to bring this warm grey 3 up along here. And then the warm grey 3 is going to start curving round this eye here as well. And then I'm just going to add like little random darker lines where the fur is darker in places. So we're just giving that indication that there's little bits of shadows coming around this eye, and this is with the warm grey 3. And then darkening up where I need to with the warm grey 3. Just blend out. And then the warm grey 5 to just again, just darken. Darken up this shadow. Oops. Okay, and then I'm going to take the warm grey 5 along this line here where it's really dark fur, and following this fur direction because it does change and it's coming up. So I'm bringing it along this line and pulling it upwards. So it's creating that nice outline around this eye. Pull it upwards, and then this fur comes down here. So that's with the warm grey 5, and this is the warm grey 3 just over here, and again back into that corner there. And then the warm grey 5, because this area is darker, so I'm just going to come back in here, following that fur, and bring that warm grey 5 around and down here. Just any areas that need to be slightly darker, I'm just going to use this warm grey 5 for that, and then just map out very lightly that the fur's sort of coming down this way. Warm grey 3, and the fur's coming down this way. So you can see just by using a few of the warm grey tones that we're starting to get some real definition to this fur, and this is what it's going to be about. It's going to be about using our warm greys to create the contrast that we need. I'm just going to take this warm grey 5 and very lightly along here darken this part of the grey up as well, very lightly, and then just blend here again. Okay, let's do the same to this eye because that's quite a nice amount of fur. Now this fur does need more definition, but I don't want to add it till we really start coming in with the fur all around. It'll really, for me, it'll help adding detail once we've got everything in. For the moment, we've kind of just got the base colours in. We've got the colours in, and that's kind of all we've been focusing on for the fur on the eyes. So the warm grey one again. I'm just going to sort of add a little bit more fur around here. Bring it around his eye here. Now if you've pressed too hard with your graphite, do remove those graphite lines before you go in with your base layer. Once you've got that base layer in over those graphite lines, it's going to be really hard to remove them. And then I'm just going to bring this a bit further down here. Okay, I think that's a nice amount of fur around this eye. And then the warm grey one, cold grey one, sorry, along here. And the top of his eye. And now I'm not going to do the cold grey one on this area. This is very warm in tone. So by that I mean I don't see any blue tones within that section of the fur. So I'm not going to use the cold grey one down there. Where I see the blue tones is where I'm using the cold grey one over the top of the base layer. Okay, now the warm grey 5. And I'm just going to sort of map in where this section's darker. So it's kind of like colour blocking at the moment. We're just adding in the colours. Where's it darker, where's it lighter, adding those colours in those areas. And that's going to help us for the next section where we start bringing in the fur details, more fur and more fur details. Now I'm hoping with this tutorial that it's not going to be as long a tutorial as the Border Collie was. I know the Border Collie was a long tutorial. With this guy, he should be a little quicker. Definitely won't be as long anyway. And then the warm grey 5 along here. We've kind of got quite a lot of his eyes, fur and eyes done today. So the next section will be about adding more fur and more fur detail. I'm going to take the warm grey 3. But as we build up the layers, we're going to start seeing the fur really come to life. So this next section, I think we're actually going to do the ears. Because the ears have some fur, but they also have the skin, and we need that to look nice and smooth. So I think we're going to do them next section, and then we can sort of work our way down his head. I think that's going to be the best way. The warm grey 5, very lightly now, and I'm just following that fur direction and just mapping in darker shades, but you can see I'm starting to really get some nice fur details coming through as well, and this area is darker. Along here, and then I'm just going to take the warm grey 3 along here. So you can see it's not taken us long at all, and we've got fur around the eyes, and you're really starting to get some nice details shining through. And then the warm grey 5, just to darken up those extra details that I can see along here and just bring it down. And this area is darker. I'm just going to take that Nougat again and bring it along here. Like so. Okay, so yeah, I think we're going to leave him here, guys. I don't want to do too much more of the fur because I want to focus on the ears next, and then we'll really start bringing that fur together. We may have to darken some of these areas up still. That's fine. That's kind of how I work. If you want to go ahead and darken them up straight away, do the work that works best for you. I'm just trying to give you tips and techniques that work for me and talk you through what I'm doing to create this portrait. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope it's helpful in some ways. And I look forward to seeing people's attempts at this piece. So until the next time, have a great day. Comment, subscribe, like if you haven't already. I will see you all soon. Bye everybody.